everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am today going to work on my housewife from the kit by Sewstein, my friend Christine. Look at that gorgeous embroidery. I've already bound the edges and I've pinned all of the different quarters into place. And so today I'm basically just going to be sewing them, stitching them down, and I'll have my own little housewife. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the origin of the word housewife because I'm a language nerd. I have taken a lot of English classes for fun at my university where I currently teach geology, which is why I'm always wearing a geology shirt when I'm not in costume. And I've taken the history of the English language and quite a few medieval literature courses. So I, of course, when everybody's been talking about making these little housewives and the origin of the word in Middle English, it's actually a combination of words that originated in Old English. My language nerd brain started spinning, or not spinning, but going. And I started to look into exactly where this word showed up first, and just wanted to talk to you today about that while I'm sewing. Also, because I have taken all these classes, I've had to memorize, well, I didn't have to, I did it for extra credit, memorize and recite various poems in Old English and Middle English, so I'm going to do that as well. Hope you enjoy. The word Huswif, or housewife, is a medieval word we can find in many forms and spellings in Middle English works, at least as far back as the 13th century. And it may have been used before that, but it may not have been recorded in any of the works that have actually survived. Usually usage predates recording in any written form. So here are a few of the forms and interesting spellings I found in the Oxford English Dictionary, one of my favorite sources for looking at language, especially for Old English and Middle English versions of words. And you can see the variety of spellings, which likely can give us a clue as to how the word was pronounced in different English dialects, like hoswijf or huswif, hoswif, housewife, or even the modern pronunciation. The earliest work where the meaning of the word is actually, and this again is from the Oxford English Dictionary, a small case or pouch for needles, thread, and other small sewing items, unquote, is mentioned in the OED in the work, I guess, published in 1735, Lives Most Remarkable Criminals. And the quote from that work is, "Upon turning the pocket out, he found only a thread paper, a housewife, and a crown piece," unquote. But the words house and wife, or hus and wief, separately can be found in Old English works like the Venerable Bede's 8th century ecclesiastical history of the British nation, which is pretty cool. Okay, like 1731 maybe was when this was possibly written. So I was thinking about housewives, or huswiefs, in the sewing kit sense anyway. And so in the Old English, you know, we had these separate words, and they may have been combined previous to what we can see in the actual literature. But that was one way of just creating new words, is to make combination words of shorter words that we already know really well. Okay. My favorite is whale road, and I forget how to say that in Middle English. I think it's literally hwal road or something like that, which would have been a migration path for whales in the ocean. But I was thinking about these because I received my kit from Christine, which of course I love, and I could not wait to start on it. And I was also thinking about some costume videos that mention housewives or huswifs and older spellings and pronunciations. And that got my language brain going there. At the same time, I was looking for something to watch with my family on Netflix and came across the 2001 film A Knight's Tale, not to be confused with Geoffrey Chaucer's The Knight's Tale. And my son has sometimes been interested in things medieval, so we watched it. Well, I kinda watched it. I'd forgotten how it sort of annoyed me, how the modern is melded so blatantly with the medieval, and not in a hilarious Monty Python way. I mean, what even are these costumes on the female protagonist, Jocelyn? Like, what is she wearing? What is going on with her hair? It really distracts me because I've looked at a lot of medieval portraiture and paintings and manuscript illuminations, which are these sometimes crazy and very interesting paintings / drawings in the margins of illuminated manuscripts. And they are fascinating and often have really weird stuff, but I'm not the expert. Maybe someone has seen something like this in one of these, illuminated manuscripts at some point, but I certainly haven't. Her costumes just look way too modern for me. I know some people like them, but they're just distracting from me. They distract from the story and I just feel irritated, so they're totally not my jam. And I also burst out laughing when the would-be knight, or knight, William, found Geoffrey Chaucer naked but articulate and wandering down the road. I like Geoffrey Chaucer's work. His Hus of Fama, or House of Fame, talks a lot about gemstone-laden magical creatures, like a big bird and some other things. And then he also has a work called The Parliament of Fowls, The Parliament of Fools, where all these birds are arguing, and that's pretty fun. But, he turned up in this movie, and that kind of brought me back to it. But, anyway, I decided I couldn't handle the weird costumes that Jocelyn was wearing, and I really focused mostly on sewing the binding on the Huswif, and only glanced up occasionally at Heath Ledger and company. But when it was over, I decided I needed some actual Chaucer in actual Chaucerian Middle English, and so I read a bit of the Canterbury Tales, the first 25 lines of the general prologue, to my son. I had memorized it for an English class a long time ago and had forgotten some of it, so I just pulled out my tome of Chaucer, the Riverside Chaucer, and my son actually listened. And so I'm going to read some of this to you as well. Now, Middle English, apparently the R's were often rolled, and I can't do that, so I apologize. But again, there are many different dialects, and of course, even in the Middle Ages, there were people who could not actually roll their R's. So I think it's okay that I can't actually do that. I only seem to do it by accident during certain words, so here we go. Here beginneth the Tales of Canterbury. One that April with shore sota, the drucht of March hath parsed to the rota, and bothered every one with sweet liquor, of which virtue engendered is the floor. One zephyrus eke with his sweet breath, in spirit hath in every holt and heath, the tender crappers and the younger sonna, hath in the run his half a course irona, and smaller fools mark and melodia, that sleepen all the night with open ear. So pricketh him nature in here garages, than a longen folk to gon on pilgrimages, and pommerers for to saken strandes, till ferne always gooth in sundry londes, and specially from every sheer's enda,
of England to Canterbury they winda. The holy blissful martyr for to sake, that him hath holpen Juan, that they were sake. Befell that in that season on a day, in Southwark at the tabard as he lay, ready to wend in on me pilgrimage, to Canterbury with full devout courage. At night were come into that hostelry, well 29 in a company of sundry folk, be aventure I falla, in fellowship on pilgrimage were they all, that toward Canterbury wold and read, the chambers and the stables were and weeda, sorry. And well we were nested at the best, and shortly Juan the sonne was to rest. So had I spoken with him every son, that he was of here fellowship anon, and made forward early for the Risa, to take our way there as he yowed a visa.
You can see how the vowels are very different, but if you're just reading it, sometimes it's easy to figure out what's going on. And I found by taking a class on Chaucer and doing a lot of reading of Chaucer that I could get to the point where I could easily read and understand what was going on, which is, of course, essential to get the humor of Chaucer in his original Middle English. And there are a bunch of different Middle English dialects. Chaucer's is just one, and it seems to be more understandable and more closely related to modern British English and thus American English than some of the other dialects. For example, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight was written in a northern dialect, and I have a really hard time reading that one, even though it's from around the same time period. And if I didn't already say, this is a late 14th century poem. All right. So like I said, the word Huswif, the separate words were in Old English. And so I think it's a good idea to think about the Old English as well. Okay. They were in use much early in England, as you would say in Middle English. So I'll also recite the first several lines of Beowulf in Old English, which will be written in my neurons for my entire life, probably, because I memorized these lines for my class. And hopefully you will enjoy it. There are many different YouTube videos of people reciting these lines, and every one of them is different. And that's okay, because people are different, and we have different accents, and some of us just cannot roll our R's. But Beowulf was also probably written in the 8th century. It is the longest poem in Old English. There were possibly others, that were passed down by the oral tradition or even written down, but just not recorded, just not preserved to this day. But it's about some of the legends of various Scandinavian peoples. And it's important to remember that English was not actually the most common written language in England until about the 14th century, in part thanks to Chaucer. Before that, educated and ecclesiastical people mostly wrote in Latin and French. And there are a lot of English works that were actually originally written in French, because that was one of the languages of the educated. So writers like Chaucer and some others basically allowed, the relatively uneducated people to have their own language. They didn't need to go to school or be a cleric in order to learn Latin and French
although many of them knew some French words because they were incorporated into English as time went on. And instead they could have their own language, the English language. And that's why early on it is often written phonetically, and why there are so many different spellings for all these things. So, okay, so here we go. The first 25-ish lines of Beowulf. What we got in ya dagum, they'd kinninga thrim ya frundan, who tha athalingas ellen fremadon. Of shield shaving sheatha de threatum, monogum magnum meoda setla of tea. So de airless sithen eris worth, fair shaft funden. Hethas frovre abad, we oxen de woknum we orth mindum tha, o that him a gwilch, thara im setindra. Overrun rade, Hiran Shilda, Gumban Gildan, that was good cuning. Dem ever was after Kenneth, young and yeardom, thonne god of senda, forget of frovre. Here and there they on yet, that I drugan, all the last day longe wheela, him has, leave freya, wuldras wildend, or oldare, for yath. Beo was breme, blood weed as sprung. Shield as ever, she de London in, swashir young goma, go de ya virgin. From fail giftum, on father bear me, that he na on ulde, eft you winian, or I'm sorry, eft you winiwin. Okay, that wasn't right. Eft you win. You woon again. Oh my goodness. Will ye see thus? Thone we goma. Leo de yelastin, love de diadem chal. In magtha yuera, man yatheon. And that is it for that. So here you can see I am done sewing the inside of my adorable little Huswif, and I'm putting all of the things in it. Actually, not all the things. I could probably stuff more things in it, but I think it's so cute. Thank you so much for watching. This video is basically brought to you by the overlap in the Venn diagram of the different areas of nerdery that I enjoy. Historical costuming and the history of the English language. And I will put a link down below, so if you want to get your own little Huswif kit from Sewstein, you can. And also, I'll put a link to translations of the Old English and the Middle English that I read. So thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more nerdery from me, please think about subscribing or liking, and please let me know if you enjoyed this video, what kinds of videos you'd like to see regarding historical costuming, what kind of literature or books you like to read. Thank you.